You good?
Yep. Hi, everybody. This is Shelley Chelman with Mr. Greg McAfee of McAfee Heating and Air. Hi, and good afternoon. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Definitely. So I wanted to kind of start off with giving some background about your business and your entrepreneurial efforts, because I know that you play a big role in trying to mentor and help young business owners as well.
Yes. Um, so I started. You want me to go into a little history first? I start.
Absolutely.
I started McAfee Heating and Air Conditioning. I was 26 years old and 31 years ago, and so I started with $274 in a used truck, and I didn't have enough business education, and I really didn't have enough heating and air conditioning experience. But I actually got married, bought a home, and started a business all in the same year.
Whew,
Um, so
that's a lot.
this was before computers and honestly before cell phones. Um, and I just went out and I did a lot of, I wore out a lot of shoes, knocking on doors, going into shopping centers, asking if they needed any service. I made a lot of phone calls. Back then, we had what was called a crisscross directory, and you could open it up per street and go down, and it would find each landline phone number according to the address. So I would just start calling every street, and I'd have to make 100 phone calls before I got one service call. But so that's kind of how I started. It wasn't easy at all, and I'll go into more of that here in a little bit. But fast forward today, it's our 31st year, and we're in Kettering, Ohio. We have about 40 employees, and we've kind of worked our way to number one in our market, in the residential market.
Right. Absolutely. And that's why I contacted you because I knew that you had started as a small business. I knew that you had been in business for a while, and I knew just a little bit about your story, and I think it's pretty phenomenal. So you really got started at a time when marketing was completely low tech.
Yes.
Wow. So did you pursue any kind of small business loans or anything to kind of help you get started?
Honestly, I didn't, and I don't know if I would have gotten the loans if I applied for them at the time. But I had $274 in a used truck with no air, and it was just me. And my wife did have she was working, and her income basically provided for us for a year and a half. I didn't pay myself for a year and a half. Just
Wow.
little draws here and there, but I never had a full salary. A year and a half, I was working. I was doing some work for an accountant, and he just challenged me. He said, "Are you paying yourself?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Well, you need to." So he actually wrote up on a piece of paper the amount I needed to start. It was $1,200 a month, and he wrote down how much to take out for FICA and how much to take out for this and how much to take out for this tax. And it left us, 900 some dollars. And that's what I started paying myself. And he said, "I want you to pay yourself just like you would any other bill." And so he said, "Make it on a regular basis, pay yourself every month." And I never missed it. And I gradually increased that number. But that was some of the best advice I got.
So you said that you didn't have a lot of heating and air experience. What made you choose that market?
Sure. Well, I actually, the short story of it all, at 19 years of age, I moved to Dayton from Mansfield, Ohio. My grandfather had retired from Firestone Tire and Rubber Company, and my
Mhm.
dad worked at Firestone. And I'm not talking about the auto stores, I'm talking about the distribution centers and the plant, the factories. Um, and college wasn't in my sights. Uh, I'll just leave it at that. And I, when my dad said we're moving from here to Dayton, and Firestone actually owned the old Dayton Tire, so
Mhm.
they moved to their distribution center here. He said, "We're moving to Dayton." He said, "There's like 15 guys moving from here to there. You'll be the 16th hired if you want on." I said, "Absolutely." I was 19 years old. I said, "Absolutely." So I moved to Dayton, and was working at Firestone. And I worked there for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years. And I realized I didn't want to do that. I was 19 years old, so I was like 21. I didn't want to do that the rest of my life, for many reasons. But so I joined the Marine Corps, and I served 2 years active, and then I served a few years reserve. And inside the Marine Corps, you can take all kinds of different classes. And I took a refrigeration course, and I liked it. And it's kind of ironic because my dad never did give us much advice, but I remember being like 14, 15 years old, standing by the refrigerator, drinking a Coke, and my dad says, you should go into heating and air and refrigeration. You'll always have work. So I guess that stuck somewhere in here.
There you go. It
And,
was a prophecy.
Yeah, exactly. So I did start off working for a heating and air conditioning company. In the first, in 9 months, he fired me. He said, you'll never make it as a mechanic. And, 3 days later, I got another job in heating and air, and he put me in training as a service tech. And eventually, that's where I found out I worked a lot of different jobs growing up. I had paper routes, I had vegetable routes. I just did a lot of different odd and end jobs, mowing yards, all that kind of stuff. But I found out in that service department that I could sell. So I would go into a home, they would have older equipment. I would ask a question. Have you folks thought about replacing this? Which led to, yes, we want to replace it. And it over a period of a short time, I was outselling their salesmen. So that's where I realized people trusted me, and I could sell. And that's actually the number one reason people use McAfee today is they trust us. So that hasn't changed.
No, that is.
So I worked at that company, and he actually closed and went out of business. And he laid me off a couple months before they went out of business. And that's when, so I had about a total of almost 2 years in heating and air. And that's all the experience I had. So if I was coaching someone today, I'd say probably get a little bit more experience, but it seemed to work out okay.
Right. Maybe you're the exception and not necessarily the rule.
Exactly.
Right. So being in this area for most of your adult life, then you have experienced the big changes that we've gone through, like GM and their assembly plants closing, and NCR leaving. We've lost a lot of major corporations. I know some have come in to kind of fill that gap, but not to the same degree that those larger employers did. And then we get hit with COVID. So what kind of things do you do to try to diversify your business plan to handle those changes?
Sure. And sometimes you don't see those changes coming.
Right.
Which makes it difficult. So, first of all, I want to let people know that small business is 90% of the businesses in the United States. So it's not the GMs, it's not Amazon, it's not Apple, it's small business. It's a lot of mom and pop shops of Americans that have worked hard and are running a business, and they're supplying jobs and they're supplying income, and they're doing a lot of community effort. And so that's kind of what keeps America going. I didn't really realize that when I was in school, and I wouldn't have known that. But 90% of businesses are small businesses, and so for us, we've tried to diversify in a couple different ways. If I started in 1990, in 1993, we were already doing air duct cleaning when only 2 other companies were doing air duct cleaning. So I got in it at the right time. So air duct cleaning does tie in with heating and air. We clean your air ducts, we put in a new furnace, etc. So we've been doing air duct cleaning since 1993. And then we started back around 2006, we started a sheet metal shop because that has a lot to do with heating and air. However, it has the same business pattern as heating and air. So when we're slow, it's slow. But it's another area of business that we do work for ourselves, and we do work for other companies. So we can make custom sheet metal for furnaces and air conditioners, through other companies.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah. So But I've tried to, I'm a little bit different. I'm a different model of business. Um, although we never had a business loan starting out, you know, and we started off at our kitchen table, and then I built a garage behind our house, and it was like split down the middle, half office, half warehouse. And then in 1996, I bought some property where we're almost sitting on. I'll go over that in a minute. But I bought 3 acres right here in Kettering, and then I paid it off. And then in 1997, we broke ground and built an 11,000 square foot building. So we came from a 24 by 24 garage to 11,000 square foot building, but I leased out the front part and I took like 3,500 in the back. So the front part paid for my building. That was a process though. It didn't lease for 18 months. So for 18 months, I had to make payments on a building, and I wasn't used to having any payments. And by the way, since I didn't have a loan and didn't have a credit established, it took me 6 banks. I went to 6 banks before I got approved for the building loan.
Wow.
So I got 5 no's. No, until one bank said yes. And then they charged me such a high interest rate, but I didn't have a choice. I wanted to get the building built.
Right. You have
But
to
then
do what you have to do.
Right. But then I focused on, even though I had leveraged a lot of money over a period of time, I always focused on becoming debt free. So over a period of time, 2011, I became personally debt free. And sometime around 2017, we became 100% business debt free.
That's fantastic. So when we're going through those different kinds of economic downturns, as unpredictable as things like COVID were, what do you do first of all, do you notice a difference in both service calls and the level of service business, but then also the difference in the levels of new services, for example, like installations of new equipment? So do they both go down at the same time?
Yes and no. I told people, you know, early this year when we started getting into the COVID thing, if COVID would have kicked off and we would have had 95-degree weather in Dayton, Ohio, we would not have been affected at all by COVID, because when people are hot, they need cooling, and when people are cold, they need heat, and they don't
Desperate
care
time.
who's in their house. They don't care who's in their house, and they don't care who's wearing a mask. Honestly, they want air and they want it now. Unfortunately, we had some very mild weather getting started, so we had a lot of people reschedule and not want us in their house. So we just worked very steady. Some still did, and we stayed very busy. It's just that a lot of people put things off. For us, because we do 95% of what we do is residential. So they just delayed having either something cleaned or repaired properly or replaced.
Right, absolutely. Well, you were really fortunate because with the air duct cleaning service that you provide, you actually had a filtration system that you were able to advertise, that it even filtered out the COVID virus. And so I was kind of curious, was that a product or something that you had developed prior, or was that something you started working on in response to the pandemic?
Well, I would love to take credit and say we manufactured that, but or developed it. But what I did was I started doing a lot of research on different kind of air purifiers and filtration units. And when I came across this one, it was very rare. It's very unique how it works. It's not your typical filtration, or it's not your typical UV light. So when they had third-party results that it removed COVID, coronavirus, that got our attention really fast, and we started marketing it really fast, and the sales on that little item soared, and we did very well with that, and we still are today.
Yeah, that was actually my follow-up question, was whether or not being able to really quickly respond to what was going on, find something that would fill that need, and then be able to market it. Did that pay off for you? So it sounds like the answer is yes, it did.
Yeah, that was
Excellent.
when right before I talked, I called you on Zoom here. I was doing a podcast and I was talking about staying ahead of the competition and always changing. And if you're in business and you don't, you're going to get left behind. So you've got to constantly be thinking about, what do I need to be doing now?
Well, that's interesting because that actually, and no, you're not off the hook yet. We're not done. But that was actually the last question that I had for you is, what is your number one advice? Because you do a podcast, and if I'm not mistaken, you also do conferences and presentations for trying to help launch entrepreneurs back into whatever form of business they choose. So is that your number one piece of advice?
It's in the top three. But yeah, I've been coaching and holding business boot camps for about 12 years now. And I help small businesses. They come from all over the United States and attend our boot camps. And we did our first one, of course, on Zoom this fall. But so my advice is to just serve people better than anyone else, and just take care of people, because that has been working for hundreds of years in business. Just take care of people. And we try to take care of people better than anyone else. And as a business owner, it takes a lot of hard work. If you think you're going to just get in business and be able to go on vacation all the time and just relax, you better keep working for someone, because that's not how it works. I joke with people, but I'm serious. I pick which 12 hours I want. I work half days. I just pick which 12 hours I want to work. Because it takes a lot of work. And when I first started, the first couple of years, it might have took 16 hours a day. And it just takes a lot of work to get things going. We only grew one person a year for the first 15 years. So it's very slow growth, but other companies were coming on and they looked like they were doing much better than us because they were buying new trucks and getting in debt. We just kept plowing through and taking care of people. Those companies are now gone. We're still here. We're doing very well.
Well, do you think part of the reason for that is because you were able to stay primarily debt-free, especially early on, until you invested in your property, but then two, your small size kind of lends itself to being able to be more flexible and to diversify your different areas of interest, the different services, like going into the sheet metal and being able to market that to businesses rather than individuals. So it sounds like those two things have really been key for you, the small size and staying out of debt.
Absolutely. I mean, when you're debt free, you have freedom. You have a lot of freedom, and it's also a sleep factor. I sleep well at night. I don't have to worry about stuff. And if I want to give a major discount to someone just because I can, I will. And I'm not worried about making a certain percentage, because I don't have to at times. So there's a lot of freedom. Just yesterday we did a service call for an elderly couple who truly don't have the money to replace their unit, and it's now dangerous. So we're able to put a brand new furnace in for them at no charge just to get them heat, where a lot of companies can't do that even if they wanted to.
That actually is another thing. You're giving me perfect segues into different questions that I have. So one of the things that has always struck me about you is that you have always been very open and honest, very public with your faith, almost to the point of evangelizing. And that is in no means a criticism. Actually, it's kudo, because a lot of people shy away from being that open about their faith because they're worried of some kind of pushback from the public. Can you speak to what your experience has been with that, and do you feel that it's helped you, or that it's actually limited some options?
Sure. Well, well, first of all, I'm a Christian. So I've accepted Jesus in my heart and I live for him personally. And I couldn't be, if it doesn't sprinkle over into my business, then I think I'm doing something wrong, because that's who I am. So I am not ashamed to share that. I'm not going to be in your face about it, but it is going to sprinkle through my business. My team knows where I stand on it. I do share multiple things in a company meeting. I'm not afraid to pray and open up in a company meeting. Have been doing that for years. And we have shared through the Breath of Fresh Air and some of our, even if you go to our mcair.com, there's a prayer request form on the front page. So if you need prayer, you can fill that out and send it in. And we have people who will pray for you, your family, or we've had some really serious issues come by, and we've only had that for a month. I just think it's a great idea to have that on there. I kind of borrowed the idea from another company outside of Ohio, but
it's a great idea.
So, but no, I'm not afraid to stand up for what I believe, and especially for children, especially for life, especially for Jesus. So with that, you're always going to get, especially in our cancel culture, you're always going to get people who disagree with me and tell me I shouldn't be talking about that and stick to business. However, the majority today, still today, the majority appreciate it. The majority support us because of it. And I'm not doing it for work. I'm just doing it and kind of letting the chips fall where they fall. But so far it's worked very well for us, and people appreciate it. And they know I'm sincere about it, and I'm not doing it for a show.
Oh, absolutely. That comes across. And your Breath of Fresh Air ads was actually what I was referring to, because they do come on the radio, and they are not only expressions of faith, but also very strong stances about things that can be considered touchy subjects, especially, as you said, in the cancel culture we have today. And that kind of leads me into, I'm gonna have to take you with me all the time to just kind of open up those doorways to the questions I want to get to. But that kind of leads to the question about your recent experience where you were targeted and kind of to some degree became a victim of the cancel culture over words that were taken out of context. There was fairly public backlash about that. Can you speak to that about, first of all, how did you address that? And how did it affect your business? And then I'd like to move into kind of a personal note of that as well.
Sure. Well, first of all, because I've been very open in how I believe, whether it's my Christianity or whether it's my political beliefs, or I've been very open. I mean, I spoke at multiple tea parties years ago, probably 7 different.
I actually saw you speaking at a Tea Party rally years ago.
So I never, it was during the Obama presidency, and I never bashed Obama. I only stayed positive. I only stayed, where can we go as Americans, and where can we continue to grow and be more successful as Americans? But because of that, I mean, our business boomed because of the Tea Party. I'll tell you that right now. I mean, we had the most growth years than we've ever had. So that was some really good stuff. And it was also encouraging as an American. But the cancel culture, that's just a totally, it's new within a year old. It's very new. And I thought about this, and I thought, there's no really accepted definition for cancel culture, because it's one unaccountable group who applies pressure to punish someone or some group for a perceived wrongdoing. Mm-hmm. And it truly doesn't make sense. And a good friend of mine asked me, he said, well, it's been going on for a long time. When we used to boycott stuff, years ago, we boycotted stuff, but we didn't boycott them to hurt them or make them go away. We boycotted for change.
Right.
There's a difference.
Or really an expression of power of the purse kind of thing, you know?
Exactly.
And that's something that obviously dates back well before we had a constitution to defend. So did that event negatively affect your business?
There were definitely some negative effects. What I said within my group was fine. I wasn't, it wasn't meant to be anything racist. And within my personal Facebook page, I had over 200 likes. Everybody knew where I was coming from because I had laid out 3 posts in a row. But when someone got on there and took it all out of context, and then if I had kept my mouth shut, I probably would have been a lot better off as how I responded to their attack, because then they took everything I said out of context and they put it in this nice little collage and then sent it around to the world. And it went viral very fast, as you know. But we lost some employees because of it. We lost some customers because of it. It basically put me in a pit. I mean, I was in a dark, cold pit for about a week. It was the worst experience probably in business that I ever went through for about a week, because I had never experienced it. And I had my life threatened. I had my family threatened. I had my building burnt, threatened to be burned down. I had armed guards here for about 30 days at night, all night long. I had Kettering Police Department patrolling here more, and I had Greene County Sheriff patrolling our home every hour. They did a great job, both of them, and I've met with them since then. So when you get canceled, like, every person, I mean, if you haven't read recently that Senator Dianne Feinstein got canceled, they removed her name from her school. She had a school named after her. It was the Feinstein Elementary School. They've removed her name from the school because she replaced a flag, Confederate flag. She replaced a Confederate flag that had been there forever, and it was deteriorating, and she had it replaced. She was canceled because of that. No more name on school. All the good things that she's done to earn that name on the school, she's been canceled. So yeah, it affected me. But as time went on, I did a lot of cool things. I did a restoration period, and I met with a guy named Ford Taylor who deals with stuff like this. And I stayed at his house with him and his family for 2 days in Texas. And I went through a book called Max Lucado wrote, You'll Get Through This. And of course, I did a lot of prayer. You can't see it up there, but that's Jesus on that wall right there. And so he definitely helped me get through this. But, yeah. And I did an apology. I did a public apology that came from my heart, because my attorney hired another attorney who specializes in apologies. And it was so fake, I couldn't read it. And it wasn't me. So I got rid of it, started over. I had 3 African-American friends sit down with me, and I wrote this apology from my heart, and they just helped me tweak it. They just tweaked it. But what most people don't know is the mob that attacked me was 95% white. And my black friends know who I am. We're still friends. We still meet. We still talk. They probably thought it was stupid, but they knew it wasn't racist. So I'll stick with that. Now, since then, we just have a lot of support. And since then, people use us because of that, because of my attack, because the Dayton Daily News, who I've supported for years, and the other names of companies who canceled me, who I've supported for years and raised millions of dollars for their associations and their groups and their hospitals, canceled me. But since then, we've just got a lot of support, and we're not missing a beat. We're very strong. We're going to come back stronger this year than we've ever been.
That's excellent. That's great to hear too, because I think you're right. When you were kind of defining the term, the key thing is that it doesn't matter how many make up the group.
Right.
What matters is the platforms that they use. And whether or not they use those platforms for or against you. And just as you gave the example with Dianne Feinstein, it can be anything. It literally can be anything. And so I think that has created a situation where people are afraid to speak to their faith publicly. People are afraid to say or do anything that can be construed other than completely neutral, because they need their job, they need their paycheck, or they need their business to stay
Right.
in business. But what I think a bunch of people don't realize is that just as you have come back stronger, a lot of the people who have gone through that experience have also come out stronger. So one of the things that I'm trying to focus on here is, first of all, your story and your advice for entrepreneurs, but also the fact that although the cancel culture seems to kind of have the country and the population on tenterhooks, where people are afraid to speak their mind, or post anything, or even a prayer, that a lot of times there may be a kind of a peak for flashback or pushback from that, but that peak is pretty short-lived. And a lot of people that have suffered that experience have come back stronger.
Most of them do, but they take a hard hit, and it's really not fair. But these mob groups, they get a thrilling feeling out of hurting someone. That's all. And
It's
most
power.
of them, and they think they gain some power, and they do, because they're successful at it. Because these companies and these groups that, like the ones that canceled me, they don't stand up for what is right. They give in to the few. And had they just laid low and let this thing ride out, we wouldn't have missed a beat. Nothing would have changed. They just needed to let them know, because every time someone cancels someone, this group's gaining more and more power. If you'd quit canceling people, the group would go away. They're not going to do it if they don't get results.
It is basically, and I've said this before, it is basically like the bully on the playground. And as soon as you stop the bully from bullying, their power just went away.
Exactly.
So, all right. Well, I was going to close with any advice, and you gave me your number 3, and you gave me your number 1, but how about your number 2? So you've told us that staying out of debt, diversifying, building your business slowly, giving excellent customer service in order to get repeat customers and word of mouth. What else do you share with people thinking of starting their own business?
They need to surround themselves with people smarter than them. I've had advisors from the first or second year in business, and I've had business coaches. I've had, still do, and I have a board of advisors, and I have 3 people on my board of advisors, and I'm constantly surrounding myself with people that have been there, done that, and done it well. And I read a ton of books, and like I said, I didn't care for school, but I've read over 1,000 books since then. And my brothers always give me a hard time. What'd you do? Count them all? But actually, yes, I did. And but I love to read, and I love to learn, and I'm constantly improving. And that's what a lot of business owners don't necessarily get. When you improve yourself, you improve your business. When you improve yourself, you improve your team. When you improve yourself, you improve your life. And you've got to constantly be improving. You've got to constantly be learning. Because if you just continue to do status quo, you're only going to get what you've got. And that's it.
Right.
And I coach business owners all the time who are dissatisfied with themselves because they're only doing what they've done for the past 3 years in a row, because they've not tried anything different. They're not learning anything new. and I give them kudos for hiring me, but they've got to have a shift, a mind shift of thinking, and they've got to continue to improve.
Yeah, hiring you is just the first step in the right direction, but it is a step. So,
Right.
All right, well, I will go ahead and wrap this up, and I sincerely appreciate you taking the time to speak with me and answer
Sure.
my questions today.
Anytime.
All right, well, all right, take care. Thanks.
Thanks. Have a good day.
All right. You too. Bye.
Bye.